This is video number 5 for Excel Module 3 in the Shelly Cashman textbook on Microsoft Office 365. We're starting on page 3-48. We're doing a section here on organizing the workbook. First thing we're going to do is we're going to rename and color the sheet tabs. So we are currently, from the last video, we're still looking at our chart. We want to change the color of the chart tab to dark blue text to. So go down here, right click on the tab. Let's go to tab color. We've got a couple of dark blue options. The first one is labeled dark blue text 2, and the second one is labeled dark blue accent 1. The book tells us to pick dark blue text 2. That's going to be the fourth column here, fourth one over from the left. Go ahead and click on that. And it will turn dark blue, but again, the selected sheet is always going to be faded out. If we click on another sheet tab over here like sheet 1, then we see the actual color of the tab. Now we want to double click on the sheet 1 tab name down here at the bottom. We're going to change the name of that. We're going to type in 6-month financial projection and hit enter when you're done. We want to change the color of this one as well. So right click on it, go to tab color. We want light turquoise background 2. That's going to be the third one over in the first row. Go ahead and click on that. If we click off of that, we'll see the actual color. Now at the bottom of page 3-48, we're going to reorder the sheet tabs. So right now we've got the chart as the first sheet in the book. We want the data to be the first sheet in the book. We can either drag this one to the left or we can drag the expense chart to the right. Let's drag the expense chart to the right, and you'll see the little arrow there, the little downward arrow. When the little downward arrow moves to the right of the other tab like it is right now, then you can let go, and we have just rearranged them. Now let's go back to our data sheet here. Let's go to the top of page 3-49. We want to go to the top of the spreadsheet. You can either do a control home or you can just click on it up there. Then we want to select both sheets, and you can do a multiple selection on sheet tabs just the way you do a multiple selection on just about anything else in Windows. You hold the control key down and you click on the second item. And if there were multiple items, we could continue to click on multiple sheets here. So now we want to see if we got any spelling errors in here. Let's go to our review tab up here. Let's click the spelling button. Yes, we want to start at the beginning of the sheet, and it doesn't like the name here. We're going to tell it to ignore all of those because that is spelled correctly. And we did not make any other typing mistakes in the rest of it. If you made any mistakes and you're typing it, go ahead and fix them. Eventually, it'll get to the end here, and you can click on OK. The bottom of page 349 talks about previewing and printing the worksheet. We want to select both sheets here. The way you ungroup them is by just clicking on one of the cells at a time. And now we're back to selecting one sheet at a time. But we want to print both of them. So again, we select the first one, hold the control key down and click on the second one. Now both of those are selected. If I go to my file tab and if I do a print, when I go into print preview here, it will show me page 1 is going to look like this. Page 2 is going to look like this. Page 3 is going to look like this. And then that's all the first worksheet. Then the second worksheet is scaled automatically to fit on one sheet by itself. Now, depending on how much stuff you've got on a single worksheet, you may not want to print out 3 sheets like this. So we've got a couple of options. If it's wider than it is tall, then the first thing to do is go over here and change your orientation from portrait to landscape. So we'll change it to landscape. And right away, this reduces this to 2 pages instead of 3. And I've still got the chart as my third page. Okay. And now the question you have to answer is, do you want to shrink this down enough so it'll all fit on one sheet? And that's what our scaling option is for over here on the left. Click on the down arrow, and we want to fit the sheet on one page. Go ahead and click on that. And you can end up with text too small here if you try to get too much on one sheet. And you may have to split them. But if the text is readable, it's a good idea to get as much stuff on one page as you can. It just makes it a whole lot easier for the reader of the printout. So if you want to print this now, you'd go ahead and click on your print button after selecting your printer. We're not going to print it. We're just going to go back into our normal view. The worksheets are still grouped. You see that the background color on both of these is very faded. So we want to ungroup them. Just click on either one of the sheets here, and it will ungroup them again. Now let's go to page 3-50. We're going to look at shrinking and magnifying the view of a worksheet or chart. So we want to go to cell A1. We're already there. If you're not there, click on A1 or do a Control Home. We want to go to the View tab up here at the top. There's a Zoom button up here. And you can pick different magnifications, and he wants us to pick 75%. So click on the 75%, click on OK, and we've shrunk it down considerably. I'm not doing the same resolution that he is, so my sheet is going to look a little bit different. Yours may look a little bit different as well. If we want to fit the whole thing on the sheet, we can zoom in a little bit here until just went one too far there. It looks like on my monitor, you want to have 110% to make everything visible on the screen and still make the text as readable as possible. Now, I don't think you're actually going to do that when you're working on a spreadsheet because you don't really know what those numbers are going to look like. So we're going to click on, we're going to go back to 100% here, click on OK. But the way you're probably going to do this all the time is you're either going to grab the slider down here and just eyeball it, and when it looks the way you want it to look, stop. Or you'll probably do what I do most of the time and hold the Control key down like I'm doing right now, and then either push on the mouse wheel or pull on the mouse wheel until it's the size that you want it to be. At the bottom of page 3-52, we're going to split a window into panes. So we want to go to cell E8. So E8 is this cell right here above the 5,000. We want to go to our View tab, and there is an option here to split your screen. If you do that, it will, by default, it will split it into 4 regions. You can grab this bar here and move it up or down to increase the visibility of the top part or increase the visibility of the bottom part, whichever you want. You can also take this vertical bar and you can slide it left or right to increase or decrease the left or right size. If you don't want 4 panes, but you just want 2, you can take this and grab it, drag it all the way across, and now we've got a split screen with just a top and a bottom. This one is useful sometimes because you can, if you've got a long column of numbers, sometimes you want to see the top and you also want to see the bottom line down here at the bottom as well. And it's too much to fit on the screen at once. So if you split, these will scroll independently now. So if I try scrolling here, the top part scrolls, but the bottom doesn't. If I click down here and scroll, the bottom part scrolls, but the top part doesn't. If we want to remove the panes, I can just take this second pane here and I can get the 2-headed arrow and just drag it all the way to the top or the bottom. Or I can just turn off split up here and I'm back to where I was before. Now let's move on to the top of page 3-54. We're going to look at freezing columns and row headings. Now notice at this particular zoom level, these numbers are disappearing. So that means I'm right on the edge here. If I zoom in a little bit more, the numbers reappear. If I zoom back out once, they disappear and I see the pound signs again. But if I do it a second time, the numbers come back. So that's going to depend on the resolution of your monitor. And if it's a problem, what you can do is you can just go up here and just make this a little bit wider, and that will solve your problem. Now what we're going to do is we're going to freeze some row headings and some column headings. If you have a very long spreadsheet or a very wide spreadsheet and you start scrolling, you can lose your column headings up here and not really know what the numbers are down below. If you got a very wide spreadsheet, the same thing can happen. These headings will scroll off the left and you won't really know what numbers you're looking at. So if you want to keep those headings in place, you want to freeze them as you scroll, what you do is you go below the top heading. So I want these to be visible. So I go 1 row below the month names, and I go 1 column to the right of the row headers that are over here in column H. So the place we want to be is in B4. Then we can go up to our View tab again and click on Freeze Panes. If we choose Freeze Panes, it'll freeze everything above and everything to the left of the current selection. Or I can freeze the top row or the first column, which is frequently what you want as well. In this case, we want to freeze everything above the selected cell and to the left of the selected cell. So the option here is to choose Freeze Panes. And now you see there's a slightly darker line here between A and B and between rows 3 and row 4, indicating the part of our spreadsheet that is frozen. And now what happens if we start to scroll? If I scroll down, the headings stay there. And if I scroll to the right, And actually, that's all the further my scroll bars will let me go. If I scroll to the right, though, the row headings stay there as well. If we want to unfreeze, all we have to do is go back up here to our freeze and choose unfreeze. And now we're back to a normal spreadsheet. One of the things that spreadsheets are really good at is playing what-if games. So if you set up the spreadsheet correctly, you can easily make some changes and in your assumptions like we did down here. So this spreadsheet was set up putting the assumptions in a separate area of the spreadsheet, and that's the way you really want to set up a spreadsheet like this. So anything that you might want to be able to change, you should put in a separate area of the spreadsheet. So we've got all of our assumptions down here. If any of these assumptions change, because of the way we set up our spreadsheet with all the numbers up here, depending on these numbers down here, all we have to do is change something down here and everything will change up on the top. So you can play all kinds of what-if games. We want to go to A7 and we're going to split the window here. So let's do split. And we want to scroll so that rows 7 and 8 are hidden and row 9 is the first one below the border. Now let's flip over to page 3-56. We want to go down to B20 and we're going to put in some new numbers here. 7,500 for the bonus, salary of 25%. Since we've already done a percent here, you don't have to hit it again. You just type 25. And since we formatted it with 2 decimal places to begin with, we don't have to type in those 2 decimal places. They are part of the formatting. And the other thing we want to do is we want to go to B25. And for miscellaneous, we want to change that number to 3.5%. So our bottom line for the operating income for those 6 months used to be $3,323,000. Making these changes will drop it down to $3,042,000. And you can go over here and you can change these numbers to absolutely anything you want. Because we did a good job of setting up our formulas up here so that they all depend on these numbers down here. All we got to do is change these and everything automatically updates for us. So this is a really great way to do a spreadsheet. Don't build the numbers 81.25% into your formula. Put this cell reference into your formula. Don't put 7,500 into your formula. Put this cell reference into your formula, and so on. So all of these, we could have built those numbers into the formulas. Instead, we put the numbers in a separate area on the spreadsheet, and we use cell references to refer to those, and it makes the spreadsheet much, much more useful than it would have been otherwise. Another really neat feature of Excel is something called goal seek. This is something that would be very, very difficult to do without a spreadsheet. So we're going to take a look at one example of goal seek. We're going to go to the top of page 3-57, and we want to be able to see all of our numbers here. We can see everything, so we're good to go. We want to go to cell H16, which is our bottom line number right here. Then we want to go to the Data tab. The Data tab has an area over here on the right called Forecast. And one of the options here is What If Analysis. Click on the down arrow for that. And we've got a couple of options here. The only one we're going to look at is called Goal Seek. So here's what we want to do. We want that value in H16 to be higher than it is. We want it to be 3.5 million. So that's our goal, is to have an income for the 6 months of 3.5 million. So we're going to type 3,500,000 in there. And then we're going to tell it which cell we want to change to get that number. So the assumption we're making here is that we must have some flexibility on site rental. So B23 is site rental. And obviously we're going to have to decrease that number if we want to increase this number over here. We want to lower our site rental cost enough so that we can increase our total operating income for the 6 months to 3.5 million. So if I click on this, it will automatically change this number so that this number will change to 3.5 million. This is a pretty cool feature. Go ahead and click on OK. And you'll see the number over here. It has to go, oops, click on OK. It has to go to 4.14% from 10% if we're going to reach a goal of 3.5 million over here. So we don't want to keep that number. We want to go back to the 10%. We can just do an undo or click on Control Z, and it'll take us back to where we were before. Let's go to the bottom of page 3-58, and we're going to take a look at something called Insights. Insights is a feature that basically lets you access the internet from within Excel. So we want to go to cell A6, and we've still got everything split here. I'm going to go back to my View tab, and I'm going to turn split off. And go to A6, and we're going to go to the Review tab up here. Click on Smart Lookup. It'll open up a window on the side over here telling us what gross margin is. So there's a number of websites we can go to over here. Each of them has some information about gross margin. It'll display the beginning text from that sheet, and if you want to learn more about it, you can click on one of the links. If that's enough, you can just go ahead and click on Close up here, and it'll close the search window for you. We're at the end of Module 3 now. Let's go ahead and save our spreadsheet.